Ciao, jewelry making friends. My name is Joey Balistreri, for those of you who are new to my channel. And if you are new here, welcome. I am so glad that you're here. We have a beautiful community and we share ideas. Very sweet group of people that leave comments and watch and support my channel. So today I am going to do a set of bracelets, and I have another video. I have like 5 more bracelets designed and ready to assemble, but today in this video we're just going to do 2, and I'm going to be using these pressed glass flowers with a center drill hole. And I have had a couple of people reach out to me about what to do with flowers that have a hole in the center and, you know, not drilled top to bottom. And there is a really simple technique for doing this with 2 strands of beading material, but I'm going to do even another technique using this piece of silver silk and creating a rosette in the middle of the flower and attaching it to this little silver silk, and it's going to be a bracelet. So let me show you how I did that. I am using a little length of this 22 gauge tarnish resistant copper wire, and this is dead soft round wire. You can do this with medium tempered wire. You can also do this with square wire, but since I am wrapping this rosette through this flower and onto the silver silk, I thought that the softer wire and this 22 gauge would be perfect. So that's what I'm going to do, and I just took a little length. This is maybe 7-8 inches. I am just still recovering from being sick. So I'm just going to start right in the center and get a nice little circle going, and that's going to be the center of my rosette. And then from there you just start kind of winding these wires around each other and pulling it tight and just forming your little flower. I do keep my nylon jaw pliers handy because if I'm not happy with the way my coil is going, I will just come in and kind of make that adjustment without marring the wire, especially since this is going to sit right on the top of that glass flower bead. And so I'll just kind of get it until I'm happy with it. And so with this rosette does not need to be very big, and these are very organic. I know to ever turn out alike. But since I am going to do 3 flowers on this bracelet, I do sort of want to match if I can. It's not super important that they match because it's just a little free-form rosette. So once you are happy with your rosette, and I'm going to just fiddle with mine a little bit, I'm going to push it out to give it a little bit of dimension. That's going to be my underside, and I think I will also try to just kind of, you know, fiddle with it. I just have to fuss with things, and I'm pretty happy with that one. And now we need for these wires to be coming together in the center of this little rosette that we just made, because we're going to feed both of the wires through the center of that flower bead. So just whatever you have to do. That is one of the great things about this 22 gauge wire. It's extremely easy to maneuver. It's, you know, not difficult at all. So that's all I'm doing, is just kind of maneuvering my 2. I want to be careful with the top, because that is my finished piece, the top part of this rosette. And this wire is so soft that even once you have it through the flower, you also can press it against the flower to get it to lay the way you want. So I'm just going to draw both of those wires together, and on my little pressed glass flowers there is a front and a back, so I want to make sure that the 2 wires are going through the hole on the front. And just be careful, it's a glass flower, but that wire is so soft you can use your thumb, you can pull from the back and, you know, make a few little adjustments with your pliers. Give it a little tug. And there we have our little copper rosette in the middle. And then I'm just going to spread these wires out so they are flat on the back of the flower. And this is going to be my center on the bracelet, so I'm going to choose another spot. And also, these are like an ombre color, so there's like a clear side and then a more burgundy or wine colored side, and I don't want them to be all lined up. I want to kind of turn them different ways. I want it to be a little bit random. So once I decide where I want it on the wire, and I just want a tiny bit of space in between, I don't want them to touch each other, but I don't want to have a big gap like that. So that's just a design decision that you can make when you're doing this. And once I have it where I want it, I'm just going to get it with my thumb and very neatly wrap around my silver silk. So this capture chain, for those of you who don't know, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but there is a little ball chain inside this wire knit. So it gives you a little place that you can actually poke your wire through to finish it, to end it, but also you can wrap your wire, if you can see that, in between the little balls. And this is a particularly beautiful one for copper wire because it's this beautiful wine color on the outside and the ball chain on the inside is copper. So I'm just so loving this color combination. So then just take your time. I always want the back of my jewelry to be just as pretty as the front. So just because that's the back side, we don't want to get messy. And I'm just wrapping around and kind of laying my wire in between the balls, and then I'm just going to switch to my other thumb and get a few wraps with the other tail of my wire. Just go slowly, pull it tight, and bring it around to the back. And then, you know, really the only trick to this technique, the only trickiness to it, is really just tucking that wire because you don't want it to be poking your skin. So I'm just going to cut it really short and just take my pliers and just poke it into the mesh. Just give it a little tug. I run my finger on it and I feel nothing, and it just kind of disappears. And then let me tighten this side as well and trim it really close. Whoops, I dropped my pliers, my round nose pliers. And then just do that same thing, just get a hold of the end. However, you have to do it without being too aggressive, because remembering this is 22 gauge wire, so it is very soft. Let me get my plier in there and just direction it inside. And you could, you know, you can be creative with how you finish this. If you wanted to like messy wrap, do a lot of messy wraps across the back and kind of hide the wire inside a lot of messy wraps. I tend to like things a little bit neater and cleaner and, you know, not quite so messy. So I decided to just kind of fiddle with it and get that wire to go inside. So that's what the back looks like. It's nice and neat. And then once I have all three of my flowers on here, then I can make those little adjustments as to how it sits. But I think it's such a pretty effect. So I'm going to do the third one. You just get another little length of that wire, just guesstimate. I don't stress about how much wire I'm using, because for me, if it's a working wire and it keeps me from struggling to do what I need to do, then it's not wasted wire. I know some people obsess about waste and they try to hang on to the spool and do what they're doing, but I don't. That little 6 inches of wire or so is so worth it if I don't have to struggle to get my project looking the way I want it. So I'm just going to give that a little start. Got the little center of my rosette. And I'm just repeating the same thing that we did, where you just draw those wires to the center, pull, keep it warm between your thumb and your finger. If you're not happy with the start of it, that's a little bit too messy for me, then before I keep going, I'm just going to use my nylon jaw pliers. That's beautiful. And just draw that wire around. You get a little bit of leverage when you're making these rosettes. If you can see, I'm like pulling them against each other. So like when I get this side, then I'll get a little bit of leverage and pull that way. And so it makes your little rosette a little bit easier. Let me just tidy up that rosette. And then again, I want to just kind of see where I am compared to my other flowers, since it's going to be like the little bracelet bar. Okay, same thing. Just want to get those wires on the back side of the rosette and coming right up the middle. So whatever you have to do. Really like my bent chain nose pliers for things like this, because I can get in there because of the way it's bent if I hold on to it. It happens. Whoops, I didn't get a good bend that time. Can even use them to draw those wires together. I have found that the more I work with wire, the better I get at it, and as with everything, but like the more of a little rhythm that I get, so I sort of know which plier will do what I want it to do, make the look that I want, and you know. Oh, this is such a beautiful technique. Every time I put my little rosette through the center of the flower, it makes me smile. I think it's so lovely. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. Now that both wires went through the center, I'm going to pull them. Again, 22 gauge wire, just use your thumb and your forefinger and flatten it on the back, and then we'll come back to our bracelet, do the same thing. Decide I want my clear part to be not lined up with the others, and I want the same distance away that I did my others. And once I get that, just get my thumb there and my finger, just really hold on to it, and then wrap. Can you see that I'm directing my wire in between the ball chain that's inside the mesh. It might be difficult to see, but if you have this product, or if it's something you've been wanting to try working with, you'll see when you get going on it. So this is, let's see, I'm going to finish this about the same. I only have one little copper wire showing on that side, and I want to try to do the same thing here. So I'm going to trim this one off in the back and find that little sweet spot to tuck that wire into the mesh. So the end is inside the mesh, so I don't see it and don't feel it when it's on my wrist. There, not so bad. And then we're going to just, turn your work however you have to. Can you see right there? I'm going to try to get my wire right in between that ball chain. I'm doing okay with my hands, with my fingers doing this wrapping, and I do not have very strong hands. I have arthritis in my hands, but I'm doing okay. But if not, you could, get your pliers in there if you need to have your plier to give it a pull. Okay, I'm pretty happy. Like even the back looks nice and neat. And this is a great place to trim off. Just get my little bent chain nose pliers My favorite pliers, these Xuron, they're small. I'm going to have to bend a little bit just to get in there. I need a little space to make sure that that is tucked. Okay. So the capture chain is kind of malleable. You know, you can see it moves. My bracelet projects coming up are going to show some capture chain, some pipe chain, some different stringing materials that can go through them. So on this one, what happened here? On this one, it's got a little tiny bit of stiffness because of the wire wrapping through the flowers and around. But, you know, that's okay because that hopefully will keep the flowers kind of on the top of my wrist. Always have to fiddle with it and kind of like finger sculpt my wire. So look how beautiful this little technique is. I just love it. Okay, and I've already started my other end. All I'm going to do is use this little magnetic clasp, and as I said, I've already attached it. And these are the silver silk ends. But I'm going to show you on some of my other bracelet projects coming up. As lovely as these are, they even have the little silver silk logo on them, and I do love them, and I use them, and I try to keep some on hand, but they're more expensive than other types of end caps, and there are lots of alternatives for how to finish off this chain. So today I'm using this, but coming up I'm going to show you some other things that you can do. Oh, I dropped my little round nose pliers. And so one of the things that you can do with these end caps is just put any plier that fits in there, round nose, chain nose, and just open that up a little bit, very, very, very gently. That was a little bit too much. But just open it up to give yourself a little bit of working space. And then this is a knitted, very fine knitted chain, so like you want to make sure there's nothing hanging off of the end from where you cut it. You know, it's just good to have a nice clean end, and I do see one little piece there. And then you're going to, if you're using the silver silk, and also I put the silver silk logo, how did mine end up? I'm going to try to put this on the end of my chain the same way, this way. Okay, and before I close down, let me just show you. There's like little groove, a little tooth in there, and I'm just going to make sure that that ball is inside. Just push it in as far as it will go. Right there. See how, I don't know if the camera's showing, but there's the little ball is behind the teeth. And then I have nylon jaw pliers. You can use pliers with tool magic. You really don't want to mar this end cap. So I'll get it started with these pliers. And now I can come in and tighten it down as much as possible. And you want to try to have it closed so that there's as little of a gap there as possible. Go on both sides. And go this way. If you have tool magic that your tools are dipped in, that works, but I don't really like the smell of that, and I don't use it, so I keep nylon jaw pliers on hand for things like that. Took some 18 gauge anti-tarnish copper wire ahead of doing the video and just coiled it around my bail making pliers and made my own jump rings, and that is all I'm doing. My magnetic clasp does not grab onto that copper jump ring or to the silver silk ends, but it is grabbing onto my pliers. Okay, this beautiful little flower bracelet with a lovely copper and burgundy is finished, and I just think it is lovely, and I even love the magnetic clasp. I just love it. I think it's so, so pretty. So let's move on. I'm going to take this off and lay it on the mat so we can look at it while I'm working. And we're going to use the same flowers. Let me clear some space. We're going to use these same flowers that have the center drill hole. I have a few of these little heart tiara cast buttons left, and so I'm going to use that as my toggle. And I have a little length of, not that, I have a little length of this copper color metallics medium 49 strand stringing material from the Soft Flex company. This is one of my favorite stringing materials and also one of my very favorite colors. I absolutely love this copper color. Now for this technique, you know, I need like a 7¼ inch bracelet. So obviously, you know, this is a lot more than what I would need, but I've more than doubled it. I have about 20 inches here because I do need to double this for my bracelet, and I'm going to start off by stringing my heart button right down to the middle of the shank. I'm sorry, stringing my heart button so that the shank is down on the middle of the bead stringing material. And then I'm going to get a copper crimp tube. I have these number 2 crimp tubes from the Soft Flex company. I will need one for the other end as well, so go ahead and take out a couple. And I'm going to feed that crimp tube. Oh, it's windy outside. My wind chime is going off and leaves just blew across my patio. So I'm going to feed that crimp tube down to on both of the ends, both of the wires. And just bring it all the way down to the button. And I want it to be, I don't want a huge loop here, but I want it to be pretty close to my button, but I do want it to still have a little bit of articulation, a little bit of movement, so maybe just a teeny bit more. And then I love my magical crimping plier, so I'm going to do that. It makes like a little copper bead. Just pinch the 4 corners, turn it the totally opposite direction, close it again, and then just go around and let it form the tube into a bead. Just keep going till you don't feel any resistance. It is so beautiful. It makes such a pretty crimp. And now I'm going to dump out 2 types of seed beads. I have these little 11-0 kind of wine luster mix, and I'm just going to dump out a few of those, maybe a little more. I'm not sure how many I'll need. And I'm also going to use some of these bronze. This is an odd little seed bead. It's an 8-0 seed bead, and the color is bronze, but this is as copper as can be. I don't know if this tube was mislabeled or if it's just the way that it looks, but that matches my copper button and my copper stringing material just perfectly. Zoom in. Look at that. But it's called bronze, but I see copper. I don't know about you guys, but I see copper. So now what I want to do is string a couple of these onto both wires. I just want to have a little something there because I don't want you'll see why. I'm about to string on the flower, and I don't want the flower to go underneath my button. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to string this on, and I want to get the flower a little bit away from that button. So I'm going to just kind of create a little seed bead pattern here, like with 3 of those little copper seed beads. And then let me see if these will go on both strands. They may not. It's okay if they don't. I can still use them in between. They do not. These little 11-0s don't string on both strands. So Let me see if that's enough. So let me show you this technique, and may have to take the flower off and add more seed beads depending on where it lands. So you want to separate the wires at this point. And now I'm going to make sure, remember this, depending on what flowers you're using, this has a flat side that is the back side, and then it has a more dimensional sculptural side that is the front. So when I'm stringing this on, I want to make sure that I'm not stringing them upside down. So I'm going to take the top thread and go through the back side of the flower, just like that. And I am going to have to take it off and add a few more copper seed beads because that's too close to the button for me. But the technique is then to take the second wire and string it from the top through to the back and just pull it down. And so then what you have is you have this where your flower is like encased in the wire and it keeps it laying flat. So for a bracelet, it would lay nice and flat. But I am going to have to take this off because I need a few more seed beads. It's landed a little bit too close to the button for me. And I think I also may use, we'll try it together and see, but I may use a few of these on each strand before I put my strand through the flower. We'll try it and see how it looks. That is 4, let me try 6. So I'm going to just string on 6 of these 8/0 copper seed beads. And then let's try the 11/0s on the top and bottom of the wire. So maybe what that will give me is, just have to try it, but let me try like 6 of these, 3, 4, 5, 6 on one wire, and let me do 6 on this wire. And we'll put the flower back on and see if we like this little bit of a bead connecting the flower, or if we prefer just the plain copper wire. Those are the little design decisions we make when we're creating a pattern, and that's the fun of it. So it just looks like that. I have separated my wires, and so now let's just go back to the flower and let's just try it. I'm going to take the top wire and go through the top of the flower and just lay that in there, and then I'm going to take the bottom and come up from the bottom. And then let's see how we like those seed beads. Oh, look how beautiful. I love that. Look at how the 6 seed beads look really good. That looks great. And even if a little bit of the copper wire shows through, I can pull this tight, pull that a little tighter. But oh wow, look how beautiful that is. Okay, so now we have to do 6 seed beads again on each strand individually. Bring those down. Look how beautiful that is. I love it. Okay, and now we'll go back to putting both strands together, and let's see if we still want to continue with 6 of the little copper seed beads before we place the next flower. So that's just a design decision, depending if you want to have more flower presence on your bracelet, or if you want to have a little space, a little air between them, and see the copper. I didn't do a prototype of this one, so I actually don't know. I'm doing the pattern right along with you and making the design decisions right along with you. Sometimes I'll just know when I look at it. So let's pull those down and see. I really like that. I really, really like that. That is so pretty. Okay, let's take another flower, And before we string the flower, we need to do 6 seed beads on each wire separately, individually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Bring that down. And now we want to do the same thing. We want to take this top wire and go through the top of the flower and bring that down, and then this will be our bottom wire, and it's going to come from underneath up to the top of the flower. Just pull it gently so you don't curl your wire. If you pull it, it'll curl like a ribbon. And then just want to pull them tight. You can pull them tight this way and then lay them over the flower so you get a nice tight closure. That is so beautiful. Twist it a little bit. Oh, it's so pretty. I really love this technique. And so let's do another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll draw them together and take 6 copper. And you just always want to make sure on the copper ones in between your flower stations that both wires are going through. And just pull that down. Look how beautiful that is, even from the side. I love it. Okay, we'll do one more together, and just so you can have one last look at the technique. If this little stringing technique is feeling confusing to you, and then I'll pause the camera and just get my desired length, and then I'll show you how I'm going to make the little closure for the heart. But we'll do this one last one together. And if this little threading technique seems confusing to you, back the video up and, watch it again. 3, 4, 5, 6. And honestly, I think once you would start it, I think you would see where it's going. So there we have 6 beads on the top and bottom wire. And I'm just going to take another flower, and let's see, this is my top. Just keep straightening your wire. It may get, as you're tightening it, it may get a little bit sideways, but that's okay. You can keep straightening it until you get it all crimped down. Make sure you've pulled all your beads down. And now I'm going to take this top wire and go through the top of the flower bead and just pull it down. See how it sits? So that's coming out of the top. And then I'm going to take the bottom wire and go from the bottom up. So through the hole from the bottom up. So it's coming out the front of the flower. And just pull it tight. And as I did before, you can hold it this way to pull your threads and just make your adjustment. And then I'm just going to continue. Oh, this one has got a little damage. I'll have to take that one off. Can you see? These are just pressed glass flowers that I got from Amazon, and I can try, if they still have them, I can try to link them below if it's something you like. They came in 7 or 8 colors in the entire pack, but they're just pressed glass. They're not super expensive, so I'll take that one off and put a good one here. And I'm just going to pause and continue doing exactly this until I have the desired length of my bracelet, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've strung to my desired length on my bracelet, and I've made sure that I've pushed everything down. And just like we do when we're stringing a necklace or anything, we don't want it to be rigid. So I've curved it into a bracelet and made sure, that I've turned my wires, turned everything so that my flowers are laying the way I want them. And so now I'm going to take that second little copper crimp tube, it's number 2, that I took out, and I'm going to feed both wires through that little tube and bring that down to my seed beads. And now I need to string seed beads on just one wire, it doesn't matter which one, and get a measurement for the loop that will go over my button as the closure. And I normally do this 8/0 seed bead when I do this, but I decided to bring in, to maybe alternate. I'll see how it looks before I crimp it off. If I don't like it, I can always unstring it and just string. But since I used these little 11/0 seed beads in the body of the bracelet, I thought maybe I would just alternate them for my loop that will be my clasp. And I will just say that I had actually not intended to string the 6 seed beads across each flower. That is why I chose this coordinating copper colored soft flex wire, and they have so many colors. So if you were using a different color flower and you want to omit the seed bead part of this, you totally can just allow that beautiful colored wire to lay across the top of your flowers and be another part of the design. Oh, I'm actually really loving that for the clasp. That looks beautiful. So I think I will do that. So what I'll do is just kind of guess the length of that my loop needs to be. And I usually, when I'm using a button with a shank like this for a closure, I usually go ahead and pull it through the crimp tube and just see before I crimp it down if I've selected the right length. I could actually zoom in. Not that you don't know what it looks like to string beads on a wire, but it's nice to see the project, especially if you are making along with me. And I really hope that this was informative and, you know, interesting. I had one person privately email me about flower beads that she had that had a center hole, and just did not know what to do with them. But I have had quite a few people over the months mention that they have center drilled flowers and they don't know what to do with them. I think I still need a little bit of length. So I hope this was a good idea. 2 ways. You can run your smaller gauge wire through the center, and you can also you know, do this technique, this front to back stringing technique, and kind of encase the flower and make it lay flat. At this point, I usually will run my wire back through my crimp tube, and you know, there are 3 wires going through this number 2 crimp tube, and they do fit. It's just the 3rd wire will always be a little, you know, you might have to actually pull them back and find that little spot where you can make it go. Grab the tip. There. It's a little tricky. So all I want to do is check my loop. I don't want to, this is a little tight, and I'm pretty sure that loop is too small, but let's see. Oh, actually, it is perfect. It might even need a few beads taken off. So that's all you do when you make a button closure, is get that measurement right there. You want it to snugly go over, and there's just I think I can take a couple of beads off because I like my loops to be you know, they're not hard to go on. I can show you this one. I did the same thing on this one. So this one is just another little seed bead loop that goes over the button and fits like that. Let me zoom back out again. So let me pull this out and just remove a few, just a very few. Let's see how that looks. Once you see it peeking through, you can use your pliers to pull it gently and get that little crimp tube where you want it. Say, like I said, the 3 wires is just a little bit snug, but me just check my size before I crimp. Oh yeah, that is beautiful. So pretty. Let me just pull a little bit more. Pull it just a little bit snug. Okay. And then just repeat the same thing. Put that crimp tube in the magical crimping plier. Let me try again. And then turn it sideways. And then just go around, forming a little bead until you don't feel any resistance. You know, like, that's pretty good. But if I feel like I need to put it back in the tool and go around a little bit more, I can. And then we just trim away. Just trim away the two little tails as close as we can, so nothing is scratching. You can get that a little bit closer. Just be careful not to cut your loop. Okay, and this little bracelet set is done. Oh, I just love this bracelet, and because of the extra seed beads going over the flowers, it is almost like a bangle. You know, it's not, it's almost like a bangle. And then this makes a beautiful set with the flowers. Oh my goodness, what two beautiful techniques, and fun and easy, and what a great way to use your flowers that have a center drill hole. So there's two cool things you can do, and I hope you'll have fun with this design and with this idea and make it your own. I'll get some pictures up like always at the end of the video, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, I really appreciate that. It doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't obligate you to anything, and you know, it just really helps support my work. So thank you so much for watching and for spending time on my beading mat today, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, jewelry making friends.